Psychedelics for me have just brought me back to my essence, softened me. I continue to do the work because with each different experience, I learn something new about myself or the world or the universe. I stay curious and want to keep going deeper. So what was life like before any of my meaningful psychedelic experiences? I had a pretty good childhood. Although from a young age, I became a perfectionist. So what that meant was I did often try and do anything and everything perfectly to seek external validation and love and be made to feel good and right. And so that in translation, going from a child that was like that to an adult that was like that, made me become a workaholic and very kind of obsessive compulsive with the quality of my work, which caused me a lot of stress. And something had to change. So there was a moment that I felt in 2020, like many other people, despair and just like I had had enough of feeling how I was feeling. I didn't know the way out, but I knew that I had to do something. And like I had to kind of fight for myself to get out of that deep depression. Yeah, so when I first heard that psychedelics could be used in a meaningful way, I was in Tulum at a retreat that was not a psychedelic retreat, but it was a conscious leadership retreat run by a friend of mine, Gerard Adams. And in that retreat, I met a woman who had shared with me about her experience with psilocybin and other psychedelics used for healing. And we connected, and her energy was just like nothing I'd ever experienced before. Is angelic. It's almost like hard to describe her energy and her vibe. But I was curious when she had asked me, like, have you ever done any, psychedelic ceremonies? And I was just completely not aware of any of this world at all. So I was intrigued, but said no and wasn't sure, but also was a little curious and was willing to really try something like way out there that was so outside of my comfort zone, because I felt like that was maybe the only thing at this stage in our relationship that would be a reset for us and help us kind of reconnect. In my burnout in 2020, as I was exploring other things, I was just so curious, and it was just an inward pull. It was kind of like you're very disconnected from yourself, and I felt like that, and I felt frustrated and sad and kind of lost, and the pull that I had was just this curiosity, like, hey, maybe there's something there for you, and even if you're scared, maybe you're braver than you think, and you can try these things with people that you feel safe with, that will hold space for you and have this different energy. So it was really just like a deep longing to reconnect and know myself. The experience I'm going to talk about is my journey with ayahuasca in the Amazon to the Andes. And so that was earlier this year in April. I went down with a group of about 10 people. It was a Friday when I arrived. And so Saturday morning, we actually went out to make the medicine, to actually get the vine and get the chacruna leaves and like make our ayahuasca. And so the first night, as we were opening the ceremony and the maestros were, prepping everything and calling us all up and praying with us and playing music, I felt my heart just like beating so fast. I was so nervous. I didn't even know like what to expect. But as it got closer for me to drink my cup, I was just scared. As I drank my cup, I sat down, and then I kind of just anticipated like what's going to happen? When's this going to hit me? What am I getting myself into? And so I was very fidgety. I like laid down, and then maybe an hour or two, I started really getting into the medicine. And as I was getting into it, I was telling myself my mantras. I'm safe. I'm loved. I've got this. Like ayahuasca, this isn't too scary. This feels good. Like, but then it came on really, really strong. And so I'm laying in this circle with everyone around me who's on their own journey. And then I got really hot. So I took off my shirt. I had like my bra on, my underwear on. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm so hot. Like I can't even be in here. I have to get out of this room. So I started getting scared and working myself up. And then they took me outside and then I let out this big gasp. And then I was like, all right, you win, ayahuasca. You got me. I'm going to lay down and surrender. And then let's see how this goes. So then I just fully had this out of body experience where they poured some water on my head to cool me off. And I looked down and I had a rebirth. Like I wasn't in my skin anymore. I was like this purple goddess from India or something. It was like amazing. All these beautiful colors. And I literally thought in my head, oh my God, I'm being reborn. This is so beautiful and so cool. And then I felt like I saw this golden light that kind of took my new energy up to another dimension. And then I felt really good. Then I sat up. So I went back inside. I laid back down in the circle, kind of like curled up in a little ball. And by the end of that next phase, I felt like I was laying on my grandmother's lap and she was rubbing my head, telling me, I'm so glad you're here. I've been wanting to show you this for a long time. Now I think like I'm grateful because I needed to go through what was like 20 years of hardening my heart in corporate to then have this kind of breakthrough and soften. And the whole journey of all of this for me has been this path back to my own heart and back to my essence and like who I really am at my core. Yeah, I think my biggest takeaway from this experience and how it's impacted my life since has been that I have everything that I need within me and that I'm braver and stronger than I think. And that every time I do something that's outside of my comfort zone, something that I would probably put in a fear bucket, I like sit back and astound myself that I did it. And then I build more trust with myself. Psychedelics for me have just brought me back to my essence and softened me. I continue to do the work because with each different experience, I learn something new about myself or the world or the universe. And so I stay curious and want to keep going deeper. Yeah, so what I've done to integrate this experience was luckily I still had my mastermind that I was with during the experience. So we spent a lot of intentional time several days after the experience talking, journaling, sharing what's coming up for us, and also throughout the year, reconnecting with those people. One thing I did that I probably wouldn't recommend is I went straight back into work. I didn't I got on a flight on a Saturday night. I got home on a Sunday morning and Monday I was packed in meetings. I didn't quite think to give myself more time. And so that first day was very much like a shock to my system of being straight back into my life. And I would say, I want to continue to give myself more time because I'm still processing. And I think sometimes, I know one of my mentors has shared with me, like ayahuasca will continue to integrate with you for a year or years to come. It's not just like instantaneous, like you still get the lessons and the things that come up over long periods of time. Yeah, so one tool for someone who's at the beginning of their psychedelic experience is to listen to things like these, listen to stories. And I watched Gaia and Psychedelica on Gaia, and that was super helpful to give me context and information and education on things that felt overwhelming or scary. Or I think a lot of times things can feel scary when you don't know. And so when you do a little bit of research, that's helpful when you're first starting out, just to really understand, what you might be curious about.